So in this lesson, we're going to look at adding images to our website. So to start off with, we're just going to recap lessons 1 and 2, and we're also going to change the way that we use styles by creating a style sheet. So here's what we got then. So recap lessons 1 and 2, create a new style sheet, add some images to our page, and then style those images. That's it in a nutshell. We're also going to look at some new elements for CSS styling, which include width, height, border, and then border radius. Your extension task for this lesson is to download 3 more images from the web, save them to your images folder, and then include them also into your web page. So here we are, here's what we've got so far. So we've already created our folder, web design project. This is kept hopefully in your documents area. We have an images folder, and that's where we're going to save our images to today. And we also have these 2 test pages. I'm just working from test 1. What I'm going to do is I'm going to delete this test page 2 because I don't actually need it. And it's just going to end up cluttering stuff up. But I am working from test page 1. I can see that from the title here. Now, if you're not sure about what you're loading, let's just start by opening up Notepad++ and then closing the tabs that come with it. And then just reloading the actual page itself just to make sure you've got the correct version and you're happy. The next thing you can do is just press the run button. Just make sure it comes through onto this one. Press the run button, launch in Chrome, make sure it looks okay and as you expect it, or you can just refresh it if you've already got it open. Now the tags that we've used so far then include the doc type. Remember, the doc type has to be included on every page that you create. So at the moment we've just created 1 page, or 2 pages in your case. And as you go through, you just need to make sure that you include the doc type, you include the HTML opening and closing, you include the head, and you include the head closed. So every tag that you open must be closed. And then the final one that you have to have on every single page is the body. Okay, and then we've got our paragraph text, and we've got our heading texts, and the H1, H2, H3, H4, all the way up to H6. So last lesson we included a style, or it's an internal style sheet really, and we just manipulated the body, we manipulated the P, and then I got you guys to just go through and use, edit everything that's on your page so far. We also looked at inline styles. Inline styles are very, very powerful because they take a top level. So if you want to change something and you're not quite sure how to change the style sheet, sometimes, very rarely, you might just want to create yourself a quick inline style, and that can help. But what we're going to do today then is we're going to rip all of this out and we're going to put it into a style sheet. So our style sheet needs to be saved here, okay? So let's go to Notepad++ and we say File, and we say New. So we've got this new sheet here, and then we're going to say File Save, or Save As, and let's just make sure we go to our web design project and make sure it's in this folder here. So it has to be a top level item, and we're just going to call it something like Style. Let's call it Style Sheet, and then the extension for this is .css because it's going to be a CSS style sheet, okay? It's really important what you call it, that when you're linking to it later on is exactly the same name. Once again, if you want to, you can change it here. Now you should be able to find a CSS one here somewhere. There it is there, cascading style sheet file, and that will just make sure that this .css actually takes place. Now let's make sure I've got the .css there, and once you've done that, press save. Let's just check to make sure that worked, and you can see it's a completely different icon to the actual page. So pause the video now and just go and do that real quickly and set yourself up a style sheet. Okay, great. So let's get back to it. So we've got our style sheet open and we've got our HTML page, and what you're going to find now is you have to switch between both of these. Now if you right click on the style sheet, you can come down and say to move to other view, and what that does is it kind of allows you to work side by side. If this gets a little bit cramped, then don't worry too much, you can make it bigger if you like. If you've got a bigger screen than mine, then that shouldn't be too hard. Now what we're going to do is we're going to rip out all of these styles. So Control X for cut, and we're going to paste them into there. I'm not going to save my style sheet in a minute because we need to make sure it's working and make sure it links up to it. So just hold that thought. And I'm also going to rip out this color orange and put that into my style sheet as well. And paste it there. And let's just do a quick bit of formatting. Okay, that's great. So let's just get rid of it. And one thing you will find is by adding a style sheet is you're going to clean up your file completely. It's going to look a lot simpler to understand. And the other benefit of doing a style sheet over anything else, over any other method, is also that you only have to create the elements once, or the stylings once, and then it will go through to every single page. So let's just save this test one first, and let's make sure it rips everything out. So we're back to that original statement. Now, we have to link this style sheet to this HTML. Now, how you do that, inside of the head section, because remember the head section is all about processing. So it processes information, doesn't actually show up on the page. So we want the tag link. Okay. Now, for the link tag, you actually don't need a closing tag, so you can just open it and you can leave it like that. Some people add the closing link, so if you wanted to, you could say link and you could close it. But because the link tag comes from an older version of HTML, you actually don't need to close it. You can just open it and that's it, and it'll run just fine, and it'll run the way it's meant to. Now, the next thing is you need to say rel equals style sheet. Now, what the rel does is it says what kind of file are we linking. Let's make sure I spell style right. There we go. And we've got these speech marks as well around that. The next thing we need to say is what kind of style sheet. So we say type equals speech marks again. And then the type is a text-based style sheet, and it's CSS. Okay, all lowercase. Then the final thing is we need to tell where that style sheet is kept. So we say href, which is a link, so link to this particular page. And the link that we called it was called stylesheet.css. Now, because the style sheet is in the same folder as my HTML page, that's all I have to do. I just say stylesheet.css. Now, if I press save on this, and I won't save the style sheet just yet because I just want to show you that until you save both of these, it won't actually do anything. Okay, so now let's save the style sheet, and you can press the save all button for this. Now let's refresh, and voila, we've got exactly the same results, but now we're using an external style sheet. So pause the video. Let me just make this a little bit bigger so you can see what's going on. And let me just boost this up as well. So I go to my zoomed in screen. Pause the video and just get that line of text in. If you don't quite understand what that line of text does, don't worry too much. Just put it in exactly the same way as I have there. Make sure you've got your stylesheet.css saved in that root folder where I've got mine, and we're good to go, and we'll move on. So in this next bit then, we're going to look at adding images. Let's head back over, and what you need to do is you need to download some images from the internet. So you can just come into a new tab and say, I don't know, people, and then go to the images, and then you can just choose any image you want. So say for instance you want this one here. This seems very nice. All you would do is you'd right click on it and you would say save image as, not save link, but save image as. So that's how you save an image, and once you press the save image as button, you can come over to where you've got your project. So let's go desktop. I've got mine in live show, but yours should obviously be in the documents, and then inside of our web design project, and then images, and then we can give it a name. Give it a name that makes sense, okay? So let's just call it, I don't know, image 4. Okay, nice and easy. We have to be very careful. So these images here, I've got this hyphen, so we have to be very careful about what it's called. We also have to make sure it's a proper image as well. The kind of images that the web likes are JPEGs, JPG, or PNGs and things like that, or GIFs, okay? Let's not worry too much about that right now, but some images that you get online might not work if they're not proper images in JPEG or PNG. So image 4, and that's going to be .jpeg. So let's save that. Let's come over to our images folder. Let's get rid of this one. We don't need that anymore. And you can download as many as you want. And there it is there. It's actually, looking at the type here, it's actually a JPG. So when you specify this in your actual web page, you have to say image4.jpg. Let's do that now. Let's get an image into it. Because it's going to be part of our website, we have to put it inside of the body. Okay, so let's do that. So let's say img, which is the image tag. Oops, img opening, and then we'll close it as well. Actually, we don't need to close this. This is one of those other kinds of old tags where you actually don't need to use the closing. You can close it if you want to, so you can say close img, and that would be absolutely fine. But all the information happens inside of this tag. So I'm just going to keep it simple, and I'm just going to open it. Now, the next thing we need to say is source. src equals, and then speech marks. And the source for this one, let's just do the same one that we loaded up before. So we've got a folder called images. We know that. So if I go back to make sure, look, the folder's called images. So we have to specify that first. So we say images, and then /, and then we say the name of the file. So mine is image4. Now, if I leave it like that, it won't work. Okay, so we need to tell it what kind of image it is. So this image is a .jpg. You can also say .jpeg, but I just prefer saying JPG because that's what it said in the description when I looked at it. So if you right click on this, or even actually just hover over it, you'll notice that it says item type JPG file. Okay, so now we've got that. Let's save all. Just in case we did any amendments here, it's always best to save all now. And let's just see what happens here. So there we go, we've got our image. Now, as you will see, the image is way too big. So we can style that. Let's bring this over. And how we style that is we have to call on the tag that the image is contained in. So the img tag, and then the curly brackets next to the p. Oops. And then we want to say what? So let's use one of our new ones. So let's say width. And then you've got a colon, and let's specify in pixels 500px semicolon. So that should give us a width. We can also specify a height. However, it will, if you specify a width and a height, it will mess the proportions up. Okay, so I tend to only specify either a height or a width, not both. Save all again, and then go back into it. Now that's absolutely fine. You can definitely do that. But if you want it to kind of always, because if you know that the web kind of zooms in and out, so as you make it bigger, you'll see the container gets bigger, but the image doesn't grow with it, and it kind of looks a little bit off. So we can specify a size in percentages. And if we say width equals, or width colon 100% semicolon, this will fill the whole container. And there we go. So no matter how big our container gets now, that image will always be the same. Now what happens if you don't like this image? We can swap this out. So if I just say image-1 and specify, and because we've got this width 100% set up already, you'll see that it fits 100%. It will automatically, and because we haven't specified a height, let's see what happens if I specify a height. You'll notice that the proportions all get a bit off skew. Actually, it's not too bad there, but I can say height 100, and that'll be a bit more drastic. Okay, so you can see if you specify both height and width, that will kind of, mess it up a little bit. Let's just do two more stylings, and then I'll let you guys do your extension task. So the next styling we want is border. We've done this one before. We're just going to say solid 10 pixel, and then we'll just do red, but you can use the color picker just like we did in the last lesson, and spell border right. There we go. Save that, refresh it, and there you go, you've got this nice red border. One thing you will notice is the border goes over this percentage because it's now bigger than the actual size itself. So one thing you could do is just take it down to 90% just to keep it inside of that that area. We can center it as well, but we'll get into that on the next lesson or another lesson. The final one I want to look at is border radius. Now, border radius is a nice one because it just puts a curved edge on it. So what we need to say is border hyphen radius colon, and then specify. So if I say it's 20 pixels semicolon, save all, and you'll notice that now I've got these nice rounded corners. So your next mission then is to add 3 new images to your web page. So download some images from the internet, put them into your images folder, and make sure they go into your page first, and then style them using the tags that we've just, or the styling elements we've just used. And then I'll see you in the next lesson.